My apologies for that delay. Welcome to the Wednesday, January 10th City Council meeting. We are streaming live and archiving the meeting. Like with all of our meetings, we'll stand by our heads, recite the Lord's Prayer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, and then get into tonight's business.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Clerk, may we have a roll call, please?
Absolutely. Good evening, Council. Bartlett.
Here.
Storm.
Here.
Schaefer.
Here.
Lucy DeTillo. Here. Krebs.
Here.
Tevenoff.
Here.
And Wilbur has an excused absence.
And before beginning with the rest of the agenda, I'd like to conduct two oaths of office. I'd like to ask Josh Schaefer to take the oath for City Council. One more, Jim Bartlett. Oh, we'll do that after you do the appointment. Well, we have to swear him in for JCBT. We'll do it after the appointment. My apologies. I got a little ahead of myself there. It's an exciting night. Thank you all for serving too. By the way, not only I don't know if everybody here knows that, our council members aren't just here twice a month. In fact, many cities only have monthly council meetings. By law, we're only required to have a monthly council meeting. But in between council meetings, our council members are working very hard on lots of different committees, and working alongside volunteers across the community. We have over 24 boards and committees. There's committees and boards at the county level as well that we're all serving on. So I appreciate all the work that they do, not just when they're here, but it's what's happening in between the meetings where there's a lot of substance and commitment that's being expressed by our council meetings. So thank you guys for doing that. Moving on, first item of business tonight will be the election of the council president pro temp. Oh, sorry. The minutes, excuse me. This was in different order. Council, have you had an opportunity to review the minutes from December the 19th? If so, we'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll move that we approve the minutes as presented.
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. let's move on to nominations for City Council President Pro Tem.
I'm very happy with the way Carla Krebs has performed those duties over the past year. I would nominate Carla Krebs to continue in that role.
I will second that.
Okay, we have a nomination on the floor in a second. Any other nominations? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations, Madam President. Yeah. All right, moving on, are there any reports? I would say too, relative to just a correction on the agenda, there were a couple of items that we had had as a follow-up to the last meeting. We've tabled those until the February 6th meeting. So tonight's agenda will not include any of the abatement resolutions that we had initially approved in the declaratory resolution last meeting. We'll take those up again on February the 6th. Council, are there any reports, recommendations, or other business from the standing and select committees of City Council? Hearing none, I'd like to invite Police Chief John Scudder to give a report. Good evening, Chief.
Good evening, Council. First, we've got the statistics that we track from 2023. I've also got 2022, so we can compare those. We track across 5 categories: arrests, citations, warnings, case reports, and accident reports. We had a slight uptick, around 50 to 60 more arrests in 2023 than we did in 2022. Our citations were up about 100 or 120. We had a significant decrease in the amount of warnings that we had written, and I believe that was due to staffing issues. In 2022, we had 2 officers assigned to traffic detail, mostly concentrated down here on Main Street, and we had to pull them back into regular patrol in 2023 just due to staffing. So I think that accounts for that decrease. We had about a 300 count increase in the amount of case reports that were typed by the officers, and then accident reports, there was a slight decrease by 30 or so. Any questions on those?
What was the total annual amount of calls responded to in 2023?
5,363. That was, I don't have the amount of total calls. That was just
normally that's in the 12 or 13,000.
And that's probably about right, and I can get that number for the next meeting. That just on those 5 categories,
Gotcha.
we had 5,300.
Okay. Enormous amount of call volume coming through Central Dispatch for MPD.
Yes, yes it is. And I'll bring those numbers next meeting. I apologize for not having those. Anybody have any questions on those statistics? We're currently in the process for appointing a new assistant chief. We're going to begin interviews tomorrow, so we hope to have that person appointed by early next week. We also have started advertising for our open patrolman spots. We created a new position for 2024. Then we'll need to fill Chief Wallace's spot, Major Perkins' spot, and then also we had an officer move to another agency recently, so we'll need to fill his position. We just recently elected Daniel Butler to our merit board as an officer's pick. And they're at their first meeting right now of the year. And we're currently trying to get all that done and also look at some of the policies and procedures internally and see if we can make any adjustments or changes to those. Questions, anybody?
So if I understood you, we're down 4 officers right now?
We will be when Major Perkins retires here in about 6 weeks or so. Yep, but we're currently 3, but soon to be 4. Nope. All right, thank you all.
Chief, before you go,
Yes, sir.
again, we talked about this on Monday at Board of Public Works. I want to thank you for you, MPD, all the first responders relative to the shooting incident last weekend. Your quick response,
Yes.
as well as the investigative nature of it, resulted in a quick arrest. Maybe elaborate briefly on that, if you don't mind.
So those of you that are unaware, we had a a shooting in Presidential, actually Windridge Apartments. Late Saturday night, myself and the detectives responded. We were able to quickly develop a suspect, which led us to his residence in Cross Plains, Indiana. So we went up there. He led us on a short pursuit in his vehicle and crashed, and he was taken into custody. He's currently in jail on a $500,000 bond for attempted murder.
So, good job for everybody
Thank you.
involved. I'm
Yes.
glad it was, there was no resistance relative to the arrest,
Yep.
correct? So,
Yes.
I'm happy that our officers were safe and that
Yes.
didn't result in any additional, harm to anyone.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Thank you all.
Thank you, Chief. More to come. All right, as I mentioned, there's no, bills on third or second reading, so we'll move to board appointments. I think they're all yours. Well, I have
Okay.
two, so we'll
Okay.
plan commission together.
So I'd like to make a motion that Paula Minke be reappointed to the Police Merit Board, that Joel Storm, Josh Wilbur, and Patrick Tevenall be on the Planning Commission. Josh Wilbur and Patrick would be a reappointment. Joel Storm would be a new appointment. To the Revolving Loan Committee, Bill Hensler is a reappointment. To the Board of Tourism, Jim Bartlett is a reappointment. And to Visit Madison Incorporated, Jim Bartlett, also a reappointment. And so I'm making a motion that all of those be approved and appointed for the next term.
A second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Comments or questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And, I don't have any council, consents on appointments, but I'll go through the appointments. And that would be on Plan Commission, reappointing Jerry Ralston for another term as a mayor appointment. And reappointing Hannah Mahoney as a mayor's representative on Visit Madison Board. Sir. Just notes for the record for council. Any additional action on board appointments? Hearing none. We're able to move through the agenda pretty quickly, so we're already at the point of our agenda for public comment. If anybody here would like to make a statement to the mayor's office and city council, now would be the time to do so. So please come up and identify yourself, name and address, and make your statement, please.
Hello, I'm Jan Vatrus. I live at 701 East 2nd Street in Madison, and I apologize that I did not follow the agenda and what was on in the resolution that you passed at your final meeting of the 2023 meeting. But I can tell you that many of us that have been working diligently on documenting Black history, working on the Underground Railroad park, were blindsided and extremely disappointed that the Poplar Street Park, not only did your resolution not even mention George D. Baptiste and the Underground Railroad, but it also named it Francis Costigan Park. And just like to give you a little analogy. There are others that can speak more eloquently than I can, but you would not have a statue of Steve Alford in a park called Boilermaker Park. It is totally inappropriate, and we would like you not to discontinue the work that you're doing on the park, but just take the name off of the park, let the park be built as it was explained to us it would be, and then have a public choosing of a neutral name that does not involve a person when the park is finished. So, that's what I would like to say. Thank you.
So you're saying not name it after anyone?
Yes, more, I mean, heritage and legacy have already been taken, but I'm sure we have a creative community. We could come up with something else that is not a person's name, but it is not appropriate to put a world-class sculptor's bust of a famous Underground Railroad conductor and tell the history of Madison's Underground Railroad in a park named for a white architect. So please, be sensitive to the culture. We've come a long way documenting Black history. Our town has a huge story to tell, and we're very proud of the work that's been going on for years to make this happen. Like I said, we were blindsided, and it really felt like a slap in the face for all the hard work that many people have been doing all these years. So, and again, I apologize. I did not realize it was on the agenda. We would have gotten word out before you actually did the vote. So, my apologies for that. But I hope that you can reconsider all of the verbiage about accepting the park and doing the work, and that's fine. It's just the name that is totally wrong. Thank you.
Where would you like the bus to go?
We had worked that out. It would be absolutely appropriate to have it in the center of the lower part of the park, facing the Ohio River, lit at night. The benches, there's a picture that one of the local artists did. It would have the panels explaining the other Underground Railroad conductors that were involved in Madison's role in the history of the Underground Railroad.
Okay.
So, yeah, and if you walk by Tony's office, you'll see what it looks like. And we had gone over all that. The only thing that we were never told was that it was going to be named Francis Costigan Park, which is a non-starter. So the design, the placement, all of that was agreed to by many people involved. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any other public comment? Oh.
I'm Camille Fife. I live at 608 Mulberry Street and in town. And I would like to echo what Jan has just said. And I want to do it from my heart because we have long periods of disillusion with our Black community. And we are trying very, very hard to renew that and bring it up and bring it back. And I think from my heart that it is a huge nomination to name it Costigan Park. That's a white architect, and he's fine, he's wonderful, but it doesn't do me any good to name it George de Baptiste. It should be named that, but it is a legacy name or other name would be also fine. Echo.
Thank you.
My name's Alan Watson. I live on Telegraph Hill, Weiner Subdivision. This project, it started with trying to raise funds. Connie Partington was big in that. Dick Jones, myself, and I believe Andrew Forster. There's been, several sites that they have, named where they wanted to put this bust of George the Baptiste. But I don't want it sitting in a basement somewhere. But I think there's like 4 different sites that had been named. I think Walnut Street was one, and I believe at the foot of Walnut Street on Vaughn Drive was another one. Gaines Park, I believe, was mentioned as one. But George the Baptist, he didn't have his business on Broadway. His business was on Walnut Street, about 2nd Street along in there where the chiropractor office is. That's where his business was years ago. But he helped free about 108 slaves to freedom. And I would like to see several of the abolitionists that helped free some of these slaves, their name mentioned on the plaque wherever it is, or the base for it. I believe the base is granite. That was what I was told by Connie Partington and Dick Jones. So, I'd hope that you'd reconsider putting it. I mean, if it's going to be there, it needs to be out towards the front, facing the Ohio River, because he came from Kentucky and he crossed the Ohio River along about Walnut Street. So, just like for you to take under consideration.
Let me just mention, Alan, thank you for being here, but I think we've published the site plan and layout where both the Costigan and DeBaptiste memorials are going to go, as well as the gardens, and you can start to see it take shape now. It's going to be absolutely beautiful if you drive down on Vaughn Drive. Because we made the scale so much bigger by including Vaughn Drive into this, it's going to be a magnificent story about these two great men. And you'll see it's already staked out. You'll see the two places where it's been agreed to collaboratively where the Georgetown Memorial DeBaptiste statue is going to go. So you'll be able to see it take shape. And we've also created tremendous pedestrian access to it, because we're putting a new walkway in there as well that goes between Poplar and Central Avenue that connects Bicentennial over to the HMI campus, that will bring lots of visitors through there and tell the story. So I appreciate being here, but I just wanted to let you know that it is already taking shape in a way that you've just described, and I think that Camille had maybe described too.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Stephanie Hellman. I live at 747 West 3rd Street. I don't have any problem with that park being named George DeBaptiste Park. I do have a problem with it being named Costigan Park. Why would you put the bust of anybody in a park and name it for someone else? That doesn't make sense.
There's lots of elements to a park.
Yes.
I'm just responding to the fact that there's lots of elements, lots of features in a park, lots of opportunity to recognize more than one person, and that's the beauty about that space. It's recognizing the legacy of lots of Madisonians who have built this great city.
So let's not put a name on it. Put a name on it, but not a person's name on it.
I see.
That makes more sense. That makes more sense. The Underground Railroad is such a huge, huge part of the history of this town, and it seems like it's not mentioned much, or that information's not so readily available. So it's wonderful that that's going in there. But yeah, like Jan said, don't put a person's name on it.
And the story about the Underground Railroad will be prominent, and George DeBaptiste will be prominently featured in that memorial there.
Yeah.
So there's still a lot of, historical context to be created that's going to really fulfill our dream of that park being just magnificent for these two men.
Well, I'm anxious to see it. So keep going.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think maybe.
Let me just also reiterate here is that we're at a point that we've never been in before. We're under construction. So years and years have passed.
Oh yeah.
And Alan said something too, is we don't want the statue to remain in storage. But 7 years later, here we are, under construction, building what will be one of Madison's greatest parks. And I'm very proud of it. A lot of work and collaboration has gone into it, and the scale of it is even bigger than was originally contemplated, both for the purposes of why HMI donated the property to the city of Madison, right? As well as working to tell the story of DeBaptiste and Underground Railroad. So we're real, but I agree and appreciate your comments tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Yeah, just a point of clarification. Your resolution doesn't mention George DeBaptiste at all. So I do think that if we're going to honor someone, also I have been, and many of us have been in conversation with board members of HMI, they also were surprised. That was not the name they originally had worked out with a previous administration.
What was that name?
Wendell Park. So just, I would urge you to come up with a neutral name or just amend your resolution so that it takes out the name of Francis Costigan. It is going to be a beautiful park. We have done a lot of work, I agree, and it's wonderful, but then like I said, you wouldn't put Steve Alford's statue in a park named Boilermaker. So be thoughtful and considerate, and please rename the park. Thank you.
Thank you.
While we're on the subject of the park, for the record, I received a letter from a constituent, Happy Smith on Walnut Street, and she asked me to pass it along to council, which I did. Her concerns have echoed everything that's been said tonight, so I won't read the entire letter, but I will pass it on to the clerk treasurer and have it inserted into the minutes for tonight.
Any other public comment tonight? Aye.
Elise Detmer, 104 East 3rd Street. I've been up here before, and this is not what I like to do, trust me, and I said a prayer before I got up here. But something a few hours ago kind of just tipped me over, and I have some notes I wrote shakingly. 2 years ago, since 2 years ago, Wayne and I have encountered vandalism, harassment, and intimidation by someone of our neighbors. I would like to know what the rules, ordinance, or whatever the term is for parking in downtown Madison. I have lived here my entire life and lived across the street for 30 years and never had a problem. I have been told by law personnel what the rules are in the past. Many people have asked us why a truck has been parked behind our car, not in front of our house, but behind our car for weeks. Each time when I pulled out, the truck would pull up closer, forcing me to park closer to the handicap sign, which would be going east. As late as a couple of hours ago, I went to the post office, and when I returned, the truck pulled up even more. I have 3 feet in the front before the handicap line on the street. We also received a phone call from a person who was going on West Street, said they saw the witness do this. I have pictures, if anyone would like to see them, as to what to do in this situation. We have tried to not do anything in the past that is harming. Normally they would say you would talk to your councilman in this situation. Does anyone know how we can correct any of this?
Well, I will just say, Elise, that we've dealt with this conflict for a long time,
have.
and
We've not dealt
there's
with
not
the recent,
there's
Bob.
not, I mean, I'll answer the question about what's the parking rules. The parking rules are, we have a parking ordinance, and, you know, generalizing the whole ordinance, it's, public parking, unless it's an abandoned vehicle. If it's an abandoned vehicle in a public parking space, it can be subject to being towed. But it's public parking, and it's public parking for anybody that is doing business there, downtown, walking downtown, visiting downtown, or lives in the neighborhood.
I understand
Yeah.
that, Bob.
Yeah.
You know I do.
Yeah, I know.
We've talked about this, all of you, most of you, maybe the new ones haven't. I know it's public parking, but as I said, what we have put up with, starting with the vandalism, with the fireworks out in front of our window, and I had a police come that morning and see that. We have put up with the harassment. We have put up with don't speak to me again. We've put up with a lot. And until this truck has been parked there in front of the dentist office for weeks, in fact, Pettit Construction has not been able to park there for 3 weeks. They park other places, but that's not my concern. My concern is this truck, and that when I move my car, this truck pulls up, forcing me closer to the handicap so that I have less space to parallel park. That's the situation. Yes, we've been through this. I know that. But a few hours ago, when this happened again, tipped me over. Any questions from anybody? Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Lisa Ferguson. I usually come to you all with very cheery things because that's my attitude and my point in life is to always see the sunshine, keep my cheery glasses on that I always tell Bob I wear. In the last 2 years, I've not been able to do that because we've been harassed. And as Bob said, we've worked through it. We've tried, Lucy, Carla, Bob, Mindy. We've been through everything we know to do. None of us is going to neglect that we have our own parking. Fortunately, at 718, we have 2 parking spaces in the back that belong to us personally, so I don't have to deal with that. I live next to an elderly neighbor who has a handicapped parking spot. In 5 years, she's never left her house. She's homebound. But it wouldn't occur to me in a million years to park anywhere near her spot, even if I didn't have my own parking spots. That's simply because I was taught the word respect. And I do that because that's ingrained in who I was raised to be. Now, we've tried through everything we can to not call names, to turn the other cheek, to do what Jesus would do, because that's the way my family was raised. Sadly, I've had to talk to Bob and realize that's not the way a lot of people are living nowadays. We're living in a society where it's all about me. I don't like to be a name caller. I don't like to call attention to things in this town that are negative because I'm busy trying to bring all my friends to live here. That would make me most happy. But at this time, what I want you to understand and what I'm saying publicly to you all, not that you can do anything about it, but what I'm saying publicly is when I've had to watch a 79-year-old and an 83-year-old 2 years worth of being bullied, it has torn them down. That shouldn't happen in this town. That's not what we want this town to be about. We want all the positive, good things that can be brought to Madison. If I'm sitting there as your representative, I would be held at a higher standard than other people were. When I taught school, I signed an oath to say how I would behave and what I would and would not do to other people. I would expect that of anyone else. I'm begging you, please stop, because it has worn them out emotionally, medically. It's just ridiculous. If I have to park my car 6 blocks away for a 79-year-old, I'm darn well going to do it. And that's what I'm just begging you, because nothing else has worked. Nothing. I'm just begging you to just let it go. Stop moving. Stop forcing her. She calls me to go to Kroger, to Walmart, to load their groceries in. Nobody wants to live like that. Bob's big thing has been, we want to live in a beautiful town, clean, safe, and beautiful, and the quality of life. Their quality of life is being ruined by one person. That's not fair. It's not fair, and I want it to stop. I don't know what to do, because we move our car over there, and the police are called on us, and then John Wallace calls and goes, I know your car's only been there 24 hours, but we're being told it's 3 days. So we could play that game. We've just not wanted to do it, because we weren't raised that way. This is who we were raised. At a meeting when we talked to Thousands First, his response to me was, you want me to tell you what's wrong with your family? Sure, go ahead, tell me. He said, they care too much about the way things look. I'll challenge any of you to drive around to any one of the Klopp family homes in this town, and you better believe we do care about the way things look. If that's what we're accused of, thank you, I'll take it. But please, I'm just begging you, just please move your car and let them park where they want to park. It's just a simple request. That's all I'm asking. Because I don't want to involve Bob and Mindy and all of you all the time. I don't want to. It's a simple, simple fix to me. I'm sorry. I tried to give you the hand of congratulations. I've tried to do the things to say, move forward in this, and it just doesn't happen.
Thank you.
Hi, I have a parking problem too, but I'm part of that family. And the intimidation,
Your name, sir? Sorry.
Mark Bursch, I'm sorry, I live at 411 St. Michael's.
Okay.
But the intimidation, harassment, the bullying,
What was your last name, sir?
Bursch, B-E-R-S-C-H.
Your mom wasn't a school teacher, was she?
No, she was not.
Okay,
No,
all right.
that's- no.
Had a Mrs. Burchin, elementary school.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No.
She was awesome too.
My Bursch has lived at 601 East Main Street for about 75 years. But some of the things, and my aunt has been called, you guys have tossed me out of here if I said. Hypothetically speaking, if it was a member of this council doing that, is that some type of an ethics thing? Make me just curious.
Doing what, sir?
If someone on this council was doing that, hypothetically speaking, would that be some type of an ethics?
Well, we don't have a policy that governs that type of behavior. It's more conflicts of interest and criminal behavior.
Probably because no one's expecting that type of behavior. Anyway, let me ask you about my parking thing. On St. Michael's, there's been a person parking, I don't know, it was a 6 or 8 horse trailer. I used to work on a horse ranch. I'm pretty sure I could get 8 horses in it, and a truck on the street. And not me, I don't want to look at it either, but the person, one of the houses that they're parked in front of, since they park in front of a couple houses, and past that, in fact, they've called the police, and the police said there's nothing they could do. Now, I know that there's a couple ordinances on the books, and so I told her to call and ask the city why they're not why it doesn't fall under one of these ordinances, and they said because they're ambiguous. I think those ordinances it's either 7107, which is trucks and trailers, or 7110, recreational vehicles. So I have a question for y'all, because you all make the ordinances, right, City Council?
We enforce the ordinances that are created, and then we also amend or create ordinances too,
Okay.
yes.
So my question would be, are these ordinances, I read them, they didn't seem ambiguous to me. If anything, they might be overly broad, but they weren't ambiguous.
Well, they may not be ambiguous, but you have to understand the applicability of them. So if you're drawing it in the context of a horse trailer, that's probably not a recreational vehicle.
Right.
If you're drawing it in the context of what an ordinance actually reads is about not allowing semi-trailers to park on public streets or in public lots, which is different than a pickup truck pulling a horse trailer. My point of all of that just is that often the ambiguity comes from trying to interpret what it says literally to what the situation is today. And I've been in contact with a couple of residents there on St. Michael Street, and the applicability of it's very difficult to interpret because it's intended about semi-truck and trailers, big wheels, 18-wheelers as it's often known. It doesn't talk about the length of a trailer, of an equestrian trailer, or a pickup truck, or a truck that's pulling an equestrian trailer. It doesn't talk about those things. So it's hard to say that law applies to that specific situation, unfortunately.
Okay. You must have an updated ordinance, because the ordinance I read said trucks, it did not say semi-trucks.
Well, you have to read the entire ordinance.
Oh, I
and
did.
in that, and you're probably looking at the annotated version,
Okay.
which is online.
Okay.
And we went back and looked at the 2 ordinances that apply to that.
Okay.
The first one was drafted in 1987, and the other one, and then it was slightly amended in, I want to say maybe 2008.
Okay.
And so I would just mention that if you look at the actual ordinances, it's a little bit more descriptive than what is in the annotated version, because that's just there for, giving you a kind of a quick overview, a digestive type overview of what the ordinance says.
Okay.
I wish things were clear cut. find is ordinances are outdated, they're not modernized, they're not specific enough, and then when you try to apply it, it doesn't work for that situation. Then when you try to amend an ordinance, it captures thousands of situations, so it gets very broad. If there's a suggestion on how to craft an ordinance that deals with that one specific situation and doesn't affect anybody else, that would be great. That's not how it generally works out when you're passing laws. And so we find ourselves talking a lot about parking, Mark, because we all have to share the space. There's always encroachments happening all around. There's always our lives are being disrupted by something new, and a lot of times people look to us as the solution when we don't have the solution, because it's about good neighbors. I can't regulate good neighbors.
Sure.
And just like what you just described there, if they would park somewhere else, that would solve the problem. Instead, it's like, well, pass a law that takes care of that situation, that doesn't make it worse for anybody else, which is the challenging part.
Right.
But we also have to have the dialogue and be aware of it and reach out and communicate, because there's all of those things happening in a dense environment like what we have, with a lot of public on-street parking and not much off-street parking.
Sure. And I don't want to belabor it,
Yeah.
but perhaps y'all could put it on your agenda, and I think it goes beyond this specific ordinance. If there's something here that has fallen through a crack that's in a gray area, certainly there can be wording that meets the spirit of one of those two laws. For example, a trailer that takes up 4 parking spaces. In the ordinances you have now, the spirit of that is you're not supposed to be parking recreational vehicles or things so that people have to look.
I agree with you. The spirit of it is
Certainly, certainly the council can come up with wording that takes care of trailers that you may not. It's either business or recreational, but beyond that, you can certainly find language that covers that type of trailer and put it as under one of those ordinances.
Yeah.
I mean, this is one instance, but there could be others.
right, and what you're describing is a process we have to work through to really research what we have, and kind of what the issue is, and then how do you follow the spirit of what was originally intended without capturing unintended consequences.
Okay.
But I thank you for being here, and hopefully that explanation is good enough about why things just aren't perfect and tidy. There's always a lot of gray in many things, but when it comes to the enforcement side of things, it can't be gray. It needs to be very specific, because we live in a gray world, but law enforcement doesn't.
Okay, and with that, I'm asking
Yeah.
the city council to make a better line and kind of erase some of that gray, if you could. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
My name's Wayne Detmer. I live at 104 East 3rd Street. I've been there for 2 years. I lived across the street for 30 years and built a house that outgrew us. It was 3,000 square feet. My wife had fixed it up to where it was beautiful. The guy knocked on our door and says, "This house for sale?" And I said, "Well, it could be, but we don't have a place to go." So the people across the street, who were also friends and people we loved, we told them the same story, and they said, "How about this?" And so we bought it. The same day that I walked across the street to look at the house, a voice behind me said, "I wanted that property." And we've had continual harassment since then. Since that time, in one form or another, in parking, in whatever, in fireworks, whatever. So I just got up here seeing that I'm not going to get any response from you guys, because you're just hiding behind whatever you have, and that's fine. But I will make a statement, and you can put it in the record. And one that this man said to my wife. He says, one of these days, you're going to be dead and gone, and I'll still be here. Well, let me put it on the record. That house is mine. It's going to be mine until I die. It's going to go to my kids. It'll be theirs until they die. So you can continue the harassment, but I ain't going anywhere. So I'm done.
Thank you, Mr.
I
Fenton.
I can't depend on you guys for help, and especially when it touches people that are involved in the management of this city. And I'm disappointed, to tell you the truth.
Hello, I'm Debbie Beeman, 709 Walnut Street. This is going to be hard. I have gotten to know a little bit my representative in my area. I actually like him. I mean, a lot of people don't like that I like him, but I do. I actually have some respect for him. I do not understand what the heck is going on with the parking. But I am asking you from the bottom of my heart. I am one of your people, Patrick. To stop. Just stop. I go by there every day, and your vehicles will be that close to them. That close. I would be wrecking into your car every day, because I need that much space on each side to get in and out. Hand to God. I'm asking, please, I don't know what it is. I don't care what it is. But will you please stop? Please, for me, please. This man's come and helped me out at my house. I mean, he's not all that bad. So, Patrick, please, just give him a little room to get in and out, please. That's all.
All right, thank you. Any other public statements tonight? Public comment on any topic? I want to thank everybody for being here. We talked about some sensitive topics tonight, and it's really the core of it is, the quality of life in our community, and getting along with each other. Our community is only as great as each of us are, and we're working really hard to make it better. But it takes all of us doing that. Our next council meeting will be January 23rd. I want to mention to council that soon we'll be presenting to you for your first review the guidelines for the public arts that's being drafted by our Public Arts Commission. They've been working for the past year on that. We'll have some new legislation with regards to the designated outdoor refreshment areas, and then we're continuing to work on our transfer station study. I think at the next meeting we've invited our director of our Port Authority, our general manager of Port Authority, to make a presentation on the growth and success in one of the city's transportation businesses, which is the City of Madison Railroad. And then last night I was invited to attend Governor Holcomb's State of the State. It was very positive. He outlined continued achievements across the state, which the City of Madison and Jefferson County have benefited greatly from with regard to economic development, investments in education, and investments in public health. Regarding public health, our local health department will be receiving funding way beyond they've ever been able to fund through their tax base before, and that is allowing the board and the county and the city to collaborate on new public health initiatives. And so that was a $250 million investment through this next 2-year budget from the state of Indiana into 86 of the 92 counties enrolled in the new plan, which will be phenomenal for us moving forward. A healthy, happy community, one that's well educated and will fuel our growth, is definitely needed for our ambitious plans of growing the community, facilitating growth in our industry, and then working alongside our schools and healthcare and other small businesses and professionals here to continue to keep Madison on the move. I'll stop there. Council, if you have anything to add, like I said, next meeting will be January the 23rd, for the second meeting in January.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Jim, I've got your document.